chaosradioaustin.org, lrn.fm, anomalyradio.com, and who knows where else. I don't know. Radio waves here, there, and other places, too. Boy, speaking of media cover-ups and blackouts, did they really convince you that McVeigh did that Oklahoma bombing himself? Oh, it turns out, after the biggest manhunt in the history of the FBI, there is no John Doe 2. Okay, now go eat OJ. Good boy. All right, well, Roger Charles will be on the show to talk about that tomorrow, along with Stephen Salisbury, who will be here to talk about the Barack Obama's surveillance state. It's like George Bush's, but worse. But right now we're talking with Gareth Porter, and we're talking about the IDF's execution at point-blank range of a 19-year-old American citizen humanitarian aid worker on the high seas in international waters. And here now, Gareth, before I let you get back to your very important point that you were making when the hard break so rudely interrupted us, I wanted to read to you this direct quote from Hillary Clinton about the IDF killing this American citizen. Quote, yeah, that was it. That was it right there.
Very good.
Sorry for the dead air.
You were going to surprise me there with a quote from Hillary Clinton. I was thinking, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, no, she's only the Secretary of State of the most powerful empire in the history of all of governments that have ever existed. The biggest one, the most powerful one ever. And she apparently has nothing to say about this.
She has nothing to say. The Obama administration has nothing to say. And, of course, this is a very clear exhibition of the craven cowardice of this administration in the face of anything that has to do with Israeli violence, crimes, and so forth. The administration simply does not want to be in a position of criticizing the Israelis for anything other than in the mildest manner, of course, the settlements, which obviously stand in the way of any possible progress in the negotiations between the Israeli government and Palestinians. So, as a result, what we have here is the United States government essentially giving the back of its hand to Furkan Dogan's father, Ahmet Doğan, who is, again, a Turkish citizen, according to the standard diplomatic U.S. practice, if not the law. The State Department's Consular Services Department is supposed to provide full information, any information that it has on the death of an American citizen to the next of kin. In the case of Furkan Dogan, however, I can tell you, based on having talked with someone who is close to Ahmet Doğan, his father, that the U.S. Embassy tried to tell him that they were unable to give him any information because, and this I offer with just the greatest chagrin, because Furkan Dogan did not give permission before he was killed to do that. Now that, of course, is a complete lie, an absolute flat lie, because
they're protecting the poor dead kid's privacy.
Yeah, there's no such rule of any kind.
Hey, vote Democrat. They're way better than the Republicans, at least. You know, everybody go vote Democrat.
Well, so anyway, the point is that after I sent a message to this contact who knows Furkan Dogan's father, and gave the official documentation on the State Department website saying what they're supposed to do, they confronted the U.S. Embassy, and the embassy backed down and promised that they would provide full information. Whether they are going to deliver on that is, of course, another question.
Yeah. And now you called the Department of Justice about this too, right? And they told you what?
Well, the Department of Justice, I was told by an official in the administration who is in a good position to know what happened, that the U.S. Embassy obtained the autopsy report on Furkan Dogan's death, as well, I presume, although it wasn't specifically mentioned, as well as the medical forensic reports, from the Turkish government, and the information was passed on to the Department of Justice, which is supposed to then make a determination as to whether this information is the basis for a U.S. independent investigation of the killing. Of course, we now know that the information does justify an independent U.S. investigation, but in fact, nothing was done, nothing was ever said, and of course, the Department of Justice refused to comment on my query about this.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. Now, did I give you a chance to make the important point that...
Yes, well, what I was going to say is that this report not only documents the execution-style nature of the killing of Furkan Dogan and 5 Turkish citizens, but also provides, I think, some very useful, important information about the sequence of events as they occurred on the day on May 31st. We know that from this report that the Israeli government had initially had rules of engagement that forbade the use of lethal force unless the lives of the IDF members were in danger. However, these rules of engagement were changed after the IDF attempted to board the Mavi Marmara by attaching ropes or some attachments from a Zodiac boat, that is a rubber raft, and the people on board the Mavi Marmara refused to allow them to do that. They basically detached the ropes, and they could not board the Mavi Marmara from the Zodiac boat. At that point, according to testimony that has been given by Israeli officials themselves, they decided to change the rules of engagement to allow the IDF to use lethal force against any passenger whom they deemed to be violent, who was deemed to be violent. In other words, they were given complete freedom to decide who they wanted to kill. There would be no accountability, obviously, for this. This was clearly the understanding. And so at that point, the next thing that happened was they dropped commandos from the helicopters, and as they were coming down on the ropes from the helicopters, they fired on people on the deck of the Mavi Marmara, of course, including Furkan Dogan himself. And this is when you begin to get the reactions from the passengers using the handmade items of weapons that they created on board after they had heard the news that the Israelis intended to use force against them.
Well, I don't know what to even ask. Will there ever be accountability for anything? I guess, short answer.
Probably not.
All right. Well, great journalism as always, Gareth. Thank you.
Thank you for having me again.
Everybody, that's the heroic Gareth Porter. Interpress Service, Antiwar.com, truthout.org. UN fact-finding mission says Israelis executed U.S. citizen Furkan Dogan.